The stars were burning, not just in that poetic way people back on Earth used to talk about, twinkling, distant, romantic. No, these stars were actually burning, dying, flaring red like open wounds in the sky. Every telescope turned to Sector 1910A showed it, debris fields stretching light years, shattered moons orbiting the silent husks of planets, and in the middle of it all, a repeating signal, a desperate cry in a language the universal standard barely managed to parse. One word translated clean: help. It wasn't the kind of thing Earth normally got involved in anymore. After the Jupiter Accords, humanity had taken a step back from the galactic spotlight. Too many wars, too many mistakes, too many people buried, in soil that wasn't Earth's. But when the signal was triangulated to the Eravani, a peaceful aquatic species known for farming star kelp and breeding harmony like it was oxygen, something changed. No one could say who gave the go order. Some say it was the UN Mars Council. Others whisper it came from a surviving admiral of the Titans. But someone pressed a button, and the humans, the Deathworlders, launched ships, not fleets, packs, wolves, fast strike units with names like Razorleaf, Barrowman's Fist, Mercy Burned, ships made for breaking sieges and cracking orbital defenses, not for long-term occupation. These weren't peacekeepers, these were the last resort kind, the kind you didn't call unless you were prepared to count losses in percentages. But before the fire and thunder, before the orbital railguns sang and antimatter mines left ghost fields in deep space, this story didn't start with a battle. It started on Earth, in a city, on a bus. It was raining, the kind of slow, soaking rain that makes concrete weep and neon lights bleed color down the glass. A 17-year-old kid named Elijah was riding the bus home after his shift at the downtown tech refurb shop. He was tired, his shoulders slumped under the weight of a backpack that carried more than old circuit boards. It carried dreams, worries, and the burden of being the only one in his family still in school. He was just trying to get home. Just another ride, another night. Nothing special until she stepped on, pregnant, pale, blonde, exhausted, clutching her stomach with one hand and a faded paper bag in the other. The woman looked like she hadn't slept in days. She scanned the bus for a seat, eyes flickering over the hunched forms and screen-lit faces. No one moved. No one even looked up. Except Elijah. Without a word, he stood up, gave her his seat. Didn't ask for thanks. Just nodded and turned to grab a pole. She hesitated, sat down. Then, a few stops later, as he prepared to get off, she touched his sleeve. Wait. He turned. She handed him a folded note. Wrinkled, the corners bent like it had been in her pocket a long time. "You'll need this," she said quietly, with a strange look in her eyes. Then she was gone, stepping off the bus into the dark, with the kind of grace that made him feel like the whole thing might have been a dream. He didn't open the note until he got home. His little sister was asleep on the couch, cartoons still flickering on the screen. His mom was working a double, at the hospital again. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. He unfolded the note. Read it once. Then again. His knees buckled. The note wasn't just words. It was coordinates, access codes. A name he'd never heard before tied to an interstellar entity that shouldn't have even known who he was. But more than that, the note glowed faintly at the edge. Tech woven into paper, alien slick and pulsing with data. And one final line burned in his mind, written in clean digital ink. The Eravani called for help. "You're not chosen. You're necessary. Humanity's answer begins with you." That night, while Elijah slept restlessly, the skies over, Earth flickered with unseen motion. Something old and cold woke up in orbit. Something only the Deathworlders could deploy. And far away, on a shattered moon orbiting the dying star of Calexis 4, a single blue eye flickered open beneath a ruined city, buried under ice and glass. It blinked once, shuddered, and sent out a new signal. Human Protocol 7 authorized. Begin planetary reclamation. The note wasn't just a message. It was an activation key. And Elijah had just unlocked a legacy that would burn galaxies. What he didn't know yet, what no one knew, was that this wasn't just about war, or ancient technology, or saving a single alien race. This was about humanity's final promise written in blood and stardust, because the Eravani didn't just call out for help. They called out for monsters, and the humans came with fire. Elijah didn't sleep well. He kept waking up in the dark, heart pounding, fingers twitching like they were trying to hold on to something they couldn't see. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, not dreams exactly, but moments. An ocean that stretched across a sky, flowing up instead of down. Cities with no doors, voices that sounded like wind through metal. And one word whispered over and over again in a voice he didn't recognize but felt like it had always known him. Necessary. By morning, the note had stopped glowing, but the words were burned into his memory. He read them again, sitting at the kitchen table, the cheap plastic chair squeaking beneath him. His sister, Layla, was still asleep, curled up with one of his old hoodies. The city outside hadn't changed. Same sirens in the distance. Same smell of ozone and fried street food through the window. But Elijah knew something was different, something big. He didn't tell anyone. What could he even say? Hey, I gave up my seat on the bus and a stranger gave me coordinates to an alien war? Yeah, that'd go over well. But the truth was, part of him wanted to believe it wasn't real, that it was just some glitch, some weird prank. Except deep down, in that quiet place where real things live, that part of his gut that always helped him survive, he knew it was real. And it was already in motion. Later that day, while walking home from school, Elijah noticed something strange. The street corner where the old ice cream place had been, now just an empty lot, was occupied by a man who hadn't been there before. He wore a suit too clean for this neighborhood, sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. He wasn't panhandling, wasn't on his phone, wasn't doing anything, just standing there watching. Elijah kept walking, didn't look back. But he felt it, that electric feeling that someone had just read the inside of his skull. When he got home, the lights in the hallway flickered as he passed. That hadn't happened before, and the door lock on their apartment, the cheap kind you had to jiggle twice to get open, clicked free on the first try. Inside, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Layla was gone. A note was left on the couch. She's safe. Keep moving. No name. No explanation. Just those 5 words. Elijah's throat went dry. He grabbed his backpack, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his ears. For one breathless moment, he stood frozen in the middle of the apartment, looking around at everything he knew. The peeling paint, the photo of his mom in scrubs holding Layla the day she was born, the old book he used to read out loud when Layla had nightmares. All of it felt far away now. Something told him if he stayed, whoever took his sister might not give her back. So he ran, across the city, through back streets and alleys. Elijah followed instincts he didn't know he had. The coordinates from the note kept pulsing in his mind like a heartbeat. He couldn't explain how he was following them. He didn't even have a map. But somehow, each turn felt right. Each step pulled him closer to something he couldn't name. By the time he reached the edge of the old docks, night had fallen. The water smelled like rust and engine oil, and the wind off the bay cut through his hoodie like knives. At the end of a long row of abandoned shipping containers stood something that didn't belong there. It looked like a vending machine, but too tall. Smooth silver, no logos, no buttons. Just standing there like it had been dropped from space and forgotten. When he stepped closer, the surface shimmered. A small panel slid open. A single drop of blue light hung in the air like it was waiting for him. "Elijah Aiden," a voice said. He jumped back, looked around. No one. "Yes," he said, unsure why he answered. The light flickered, scanning his face. Identity confirmed. Initiating contact protocol. The front of the machine folded open with a soft hum. Inside wasn't gears or coils or anything mechanical. It was a chair. A floating chair, surrounded by glass that wasn't glass. In the air, strange symbols danced, morphing slowly into English. A voice, warmer this time, echoed in his mind instead of his ears. Welcome, operator. Legacy command line unlocked. Threat level, extinction. Eravani distress channel, authenticated. Protocol, human redemption. He blinked. What the hell does that mean? The chair shifted slightly, as if beckoning him in. Back in deep space, a different kind of conversation was taking place. Aboard the Mercy Burned, one of humanity's fast-strike dreadnoughts, Commander Lin Zhou studied the decrypted Eravani message with grim silence. Around her, the bridge crew, hardened veterans from Mars, Titan, and Europa, stood motionless. The Eravani signal had repeated the same sentence over 400 times before fading to static. We offered peace. They answered with silence. Then, fire. Please, send the monsters. The ones who broke the dark. That phrase, the ones who broke the dark, it wasn't part of any official record. It wasn't in the galactic databases. But Joe had heard it once before, during a classified op on Kesari 9. Back when the sky turned red and Earth lost an entire fleet to something no one had ever fully explained. She opened a secure comms channel. Activate dead flag protocol. Full burn, we jump in 12. But Commander, her XO started. That system's quarantined. Not anymore, Zhou said. Somebody just activated an operator. In an orbit above Jupiter, buried deep beneath the storm belts, an ancient relay flared to life. It hadn't powered on in decades, not since the Titans fell. But now, a new name had been added to its registry. Elijah Aiden, Operator 99. And, far, far away across a gulf of stars, something stirred in the void, a shape that had waited a very long time for someone to say yes. A warship older than Earth's continents, forged in the heart of a dead sun, powered by the last scream of a dying species. Its name was written in no tongue. Its hull bore scars, from a war no one remembered. But it knew two things. The Eravani had called, and a human had answered. The stars began to move. The chair didn't feel like a chair. When Elijah sat down, it shaped itself around him. Warm, soft at first, then tightening slightly, like a seatbelt across every part of his body at once. A slow breath escaped him, not because he meant to, but because something inside the machine told him to exhale. The world around him disappeared, replaced by stars, not real ones, but projections that moved like they remembered what gravity once felt like. Then the voices came, not all at once. Not loud, whispered, layered, different languages, tones, emotions, fear, desperation, awe, thousands of snippets from across space. Most of it didn't make sense. Some of it did. Elijah Aiden, designated legacy proxy, confirmed neural match. A vision struck him. Sharp, sudden. Not a dream, not a thought. A memory that wasn't his. He was underwater. Deep. Cold. Cities like coral skeletons glowed from the abyss. Giant translucent beings moved between them like whales, but with eyes that shimmered blue and green, full of sadness. He knew them, the Eravani. Their voices weren't spoken, they were felt, like music beneath his skin. They sang in sorrow, mourning something they'd lost, something taken. And in that sorrow he saw fire, ships, metal claws tearing through ocean worlds, unseen attackers who didn't speak, didn't wait, didn't offer terms, just silence. Then destruction. And somehow, deep in the roots of that song, he felt a buried request. Not for mercy, not for peace, but for vengeance. Back in the chair, Elijah gasped. He tried to stand, but the chair held him. Why me? He whispered. The yadi air shimmered. A projection emerged in front of him, grainy like old film. A woman in a black coat stood there. Same one from the bus. Same calm expression. But now her voice carried weight like thunder tucked beneath velvet. Because you're the kind that stands up when no one else does. The message flickered, then cut off. The machine spoke again. Phase 1 complete. Eravani contact established. Interface command, return to origin. The chair opened. Just like that, he was standing back in the cold, damp air of the docks. No sign of the machine, no sign of light, just the sound of wind and distant sirens. He staggered back, dizzy, mind-spinning. Across the city, someone else was watching. A woman named Rena Miles, 34, former intelligence officer now buried inside a civilian identity after a black op that went too far, sat in her apartment, the walls lined with screens. She had no family, no pets. Only one soft thing in the room, a tattered teddy bear from a brother who never made it back from Luna 5. Rena watched Elijah's image blink on one of the monitors. No name attached to the file until last night. She didn't know why Central tagged him, just that they had, and they didn't tag kids unless something was about to break. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. Satellite imagery showed an energy spike near the docks. One of the long-dead E-class recovery units, long thought non-operational, had activated for precisely 38 seconds. Long enough for one person. Long enough for one code. She leaned back and lit a cigarette. The last time this happened, Mars bled for a year, and Earth had barely walked away. She called a number she wasn't supposed to have anymore. "I found your operator," she said. "Kid doesn't even know which end of a plasma cutter's hot, but he's connected to something old, something buried." A pause, then a voice, raspy, male, older. "Is it real?" "Yeah." And the system's waking up around him. Click. Connection cut. Meanwhile, in orbit around the ruined Eravani world, Mercy Burned dropped out of fold space, like a blade sliding free from a sheath. The ship was silent, dark, stealth protocol active. Commander Joe stood on the bridge, staring out the reinforced viewport, as their long-range sensors painted the system's graveyard. Dozens of planets, moons, and stations, all reduced to cinders. But the readings were clean. No trace of plasma. Scoring, no high-energy weapons, no radiation. Just emptiness. It didn't make sense. Until their passive scanners picked up a structure orbiting the third planet. Too small to be a station. Too massive for a ship. And alive. Organic metal? Her science officer said, "I didn't even think that was real." "It wasn't," Joe muttered. "Until now." She stared at the structure, a sphere with jagged rings spinning around it, pulsing like a heartbeat. Something about it made her skin crawl, as if it was watching them back. Back on Earth, Elijah didn't go home. He couldn't. Whoever took Layla left no trail, no sign. But the note told him enough, keep moving. So he did. Found himself walking toward a train station, then switching to a bus that didn't make sense. A line that shouldn't exist. Every step he took, things shifted subtly around him. Lights stayed green longer. People moved just slow enough that he always slipped through the cracks. It was like something was guiding him without touching him, a path folding itself ahead of his feet. Hours passed before he reached the edge of the city and found the warehouse. Inside, the air was warm and humming with energy. It didn't look high-tech, just an old freight building filled with dust and crates, but in the center stood a figure he recognized. The woman from the bus, real this time, solid. No projection. She smiled. "Took you long enough." "What is this?" Elijah asked. "Who are you?" She walked toward him slowly. "My name's Camry. I used to be like you, long time ago, before they shut the gates." "What gates?" She tilted her head. "The ones that kept Earth quiet. That made the stars forget us," and with that she opened a crate. Inside wasn't tech or weapons, but bones. Human, charred. Dozens of them. Worn with strange glyphs and glowing veins. "They tried to use us," she said. "Tried to tap into something they didn't understand, and when it got out of hand, they buried it. Buried us." Elijah stepped back, throat tight. "What am I supposed to do?" Camry looked up, eyes glowing now. "You're supposed to bring it back." The lights above flickered. From deep underground, something answered. A rumble that shook the crates. Dust falling from the rafters. Elijah looked at the bones, looked at her, then up. The stars weren't where they used to be. Elijah didn't know if it was the dust in the air or something deeper pressing against his chest, but he couldn't breathe right. Every part of his body wanted to run, but his feet didn't move. The bones in the crate still pulsed with dim light, veins like circuitry glowing faint blue as if they were waiting for something, or someone. Camry stood over them, calm, almost reverent. She didn't flinch when the ground rumbled again, harder this time. A deep, low sound like something massive had shifted beneath the warehouse floor. She looked at Elijah like he was a door just starting to crack open. They buried what they couldn't control, she said, her voice barely rising over the groaning steel. But the Eravani didn't forget. They sang about it, hid the truth in their oceans, passed it down in their sorrow. Elijah swallowed. What is it? What's under here? Camry looked at him for a long moment, then turned away and pressed, her hand to the concrete floor. It's not a weapon, she said. Not exactly. It's memory, rage. Justice burned into matter. They made it with us, using us. Human minds as fuel, as containers. You mean people died to build whatever's down there? No, they were erased. She stood and looked at him again. That's what the bones are. What's left after the soul gets stretched so thin it becomes code. That's why you're necessary, Elijah. You're clean, unmarked. A legacy they can't overwrite. Before he could respond, the floor shook hard enough to knock him to his knees. Sparks burst from overhead lights, and somewhere behind the far wall, something groaned. A heavy metal strain like a ship-breaking orbit. A pulse hit the air, low and thick, and for a moment Elijah thought the world had stopped. Then he felt, in a sound that wasn't sound, a frequency not meant for ears. It vibrated behind his eyes, and he heard the voice again. Operator. Ready. The floor beneath the crate split with a sharp crack. A narrow shaft opened, revealing a lift platform covered in black glass. At its center stood a pillar of light, a column rising from the depths, filled with thousands of flickering symbols and shapes. Some were alien, some looked almost human. Faces, screams, fire. Elijah stood, every nerve screaming to flee, but something else, something deep, told him he had to stay, that whatever this was, it wasn't just about him anymore. Camry moved first, stepping onto the platform like she'd done it 1,000 times. She didn't look back. Elijah hesitated, then followed. As soon as his foot touched the surface, the lift dropped, fast and silent. The descent lasted minutes, maybe hours. Time felt strange down here. The walls around them began to glow, showing flashes of memory. Scenes that didn't belong to Elijah but felt real. A child floating in 0G above Earth's upper atmosphere. Soldiers with silver implants running through jungles of red trees. The surface of Mars split open like an egg, dark things crawling out. Each image hit him like a wave, pulling him deeper. Then, without warning, the lift stopped. The doors opened with a hiss. They stepped into a chamber unlike anything Elijah had ever seen. It was enormous, circular, filled with cables and stone and light. And at the center of it all, suspended in the air, was the source, the core, a sphere the size of a small truck hovering in complete silence. Its surface was covered in layers of transparent plates, each rotating slowly, each showing pieces of different memories like broken reflections. Camry didn't approach. She stayed back, eyes on Elijah. This is it, she said. The buried heart of the Deathworlders. He took a step forward, then another. The core responded immediately. Symbols flared. Some matched the ones from the note. Some were new. As he got closer, he saw more than data. He saw people, faces screaming, soldiers shouting, children hiding. And in the middle of it all, a city burning. He recognized it. It was the capital of the Eravani homeworld. Except, this wasn't a memory. This was now. The core pulsed violently, and for a second Elijah's mind slipped. He wasn't in the chamber anymore. He was standing on the charred ground of the ruined city, heat baking his skin. Screams echoed from broken towers. Giant machines crawled over the remains, spidery things with long, serrated limbs and no sound. Just silent precision, cutting, cleaning, harvesting. Then he saw them, the Eravani. What was left of them? They weren't fighting. They were singing. Even in the middle of all that death, they kept singing. A long, deep tone filled with sadness and defiance. Then something grabbed him, inside the vision, and yanked him out. He stumbled back, gasping. Camry caught him. "You saw it," she whispered. He nodded, throat dry. "They're still dying." "They always were," she said. "We just stopped listening." The chamber lights shifted. Red now. Warning tones echoed faintly. Elijah turned. "To the core. What do I do?" Camry looked at him carefully. "You link, you give it a living mind, a voice. That's what operators do. The core can't act on its own, it's too powerful. It needs a conscience, a guide." "Then what?" Elijah asked. "Then it wakes up." Outside Earth's orbit, Mercy Burned was no longer alone. 4 new ships dropped from fold space, sleek, silent, black. No visible markings, no lights. Commander Joe didn't need sensors to know what they were. "Black Horizon," she muttered. "The old program. Ghost Fleet. Disbanded decades ago after the Saturn incident. They weren't supposed to exist anymore. They definitely weren't supposed to be here." Her comm officer turned pale. "They're locking us out of the channel." "Of course they are," Joe said. "This just became containment." In the distance, something moved near the orbiting structure. Organic metal, still pulsing like a heart. Joe narrowed her eyes. "They don't want us to know what's waking up." And in the chamber beneath the city, the core's voice, now stronger, deeper, spoke again. Human operator confirmed. Power restraints disengaging. Elijah took one more step forward. Then, everything went white. The light didn't fade. It shifted, slowly, painfully, turning from blinding white into a kaleidoscope of blue and gold, streaked with veins of red like cracks in glass. Elijah stood frozen at the center, the core's energy flowing into him like liquid fire. He couldn't scream, couldn't move. His heart slammed against his ribs in slow, thunderous beats, each one echoing through the chamber like a war drum. Then, silence. Not the absence of sound, but suppression. Everything went still. The world paused in the breath before something broke. The core spoke again, but not in his mind. This time it used his voice. I remember, the words weren't his. They came from somewhere older, deeper. And behind them, pain. Rage. A kind of sorrow that cracked bone. Camry stepped back, her face drained of color. "It's not supposed to say that," she whispered. "That's not in the activation sequence." Before Elijah could ask what she meant, the core flashed again. The walls of the chamber peeled back like petals, revealing not steel or stone, but a hangar. Hidden for decades, maybe longer. Dozens of pods lined the walls. Sleek, aerodynamic, each one marked with a strange hybrid language. Eravani script welded to human lettering. Each pod held a body. Not human. Not Eravani. Something in between. The chamber rumbled. One of the pods hissed open. "Elijah." Camry's voice was low now, afraid. "You didn't just wake the core. You woke them." He turned to her. "Who are they?" She shook her head. "The ones who never made it out." The core spoke again. "Project Larkspur. Protocol 9. Command, ascend." Elijah's pulse spiked. The name meant nothing to him, but in some buried part of his brain, he knew it wasn't good. He looked at the pod as it fully opened, revealing a figure curled inside. Humanoid, but wrong. Its skin shimmered with metallic tones, its eyes glowing faintly even though they were closed. Then, without warning, its chest rose. It breathed. Camry stepped forward, hand on a small device at her waist. That thing shouldn't be alive. None of them should be. They were prototypes, bioweapons built from the last war. Human minds spliced into hybrid bodies. They weren't supposed to survive the core's failure. Elijah took a slow step back. "You mean they're human?" They were, not anymore. The pod subject sat up, its eyes snapped open, and it spoke. Operator confirmed. "We return at last." The chamber surged with light. More pods began to open. 1, then 5, then all of them. The figures inside moved like soldiers, but something in their movements was off. Too smooth, too calculated, like they remembered drills from 1,000 years ago. Elijah looked to Camry. "How many are there?" 36, she said. Each one built for extinction-level combat. The Corps' voice thundered through the room. Target confirmed. Black Horizon ships inbound. Defense override engaged. In orbit aboard Mercy burned. Commander Joe's bridge lit up with alarms. They're powering something underground. Her tech officer barked. Massive energy surge. Wait, sir. Dozens of new life forms just lit up beneath the city. Not Erivani. Not human either. Are we being targeted? Joe asked. No, the Black Horizon ships are. Outside, the sky changed. Not visibly yet. But the sensors screamed about gravitational distortions. Small at first, then growing. Weapon systems buried beneath Earth's crust began activating. Ancient, forgotten systems built by someone who wanted to make sure if Earth ever fell, it could still fight. A voice came through Joe's open comms, unfiltered, raw. This is Operator 99, Elijah said. They're not here to help. Black Horizon is here to erase us. In the chamber, Elijah felt it all. The Corps' memory, the Erivani's pain, the buried rage of generations of silenced soldiers. The 36 hybrids stood now in a loose circle, watching him, waiting. Camry's hand hovered over her sidearm. Don't, Elijah said quietly. They're weapons, Elijah. If they wake fully, they're survivors, he said, and they're listening. The core dimmed slightly, and one of the hybrids stepped forward. Its voice was cracked and low. We were made to die. If you give us purpose, we fight for life. The walls trembled again, this time from above. A new quake, a sharper pressure. The core projected a star map overhead. All eyes turned upward. More ships were coming. Not Black Horizon. Not human. Something else. The signal that had triggered all of this hadn't just called to Earth. The Erivani had broadcast their plea on every old frequency, including ones no longer monitored. The kind of channels that reached places humans had once swore never to visit again, places beyond the edge of mapped space. Camry's voice barely carried. We're not alone anymore. Elijah stared at the hybrids, the core, the maps, the buried weapons now humming beneath his feet. And he realized something terrifying. This wasn't a rescue mission anymore. It was the start of a war Earth didn't even remember it began.